Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are so glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Today we're zeroing in on a condition that hides right in plain sight, or I guess hides inside your shoes.
Right, definitely inside the shoes.
We are talking about plantar warts.
It's a perfect example of an everyday anomaly, one that most people either completely ignore or fundamentally misunderstand.
Until it becomes a serious problem.
Exactly, until they can barely walk.
Right. So we are drawing from a really fascinating piece of research published by Era Organics. It was written by Nikki Chase, dated February 25, 2026.
And Chase provides an incredibly detailed look at the biomechanics of these growths. It's thorough.
Very thorough. Our mission today for you listening is to completely demystify these tricky viral growths. We want to understand the visual detective work required to spot them.
Because they are sneaky.
They really are. And we'll look at how they hijack our biology and the medical tactics used to finally evict them.
It's quite the battle plan.
Okay, let's unpack this. Roughly 10% of the global population is walking around with one of these on their foot right now.
10%. It's a staggering baseline metric when you really think about it.
1 in 10 people.
Yeah. And to understand why it's so ubiquitous, we first have to define what we are actually dealing with here. At its core, a plantar wart is a non-cancerous skin growth confined specifically to the sole of the foot.
Which sounds simple enough, but Nikki Chase's article highlights something that completely changed how I view these. They aren't just, thick calluses caused by wearing bad shoes.
Not at all.
What is actually happening on a biological level?
Well, the catalyst is entirely viral. These growths are caused by specific strains of the human papillomavirus, or HPV.
See, hearing the acronym HPV usually triggers immediate anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
People instantly think about sexually transmitted diseases.
Which is exactly why we need to separate the virology from the stigma right out of the gate. Plantar warts are not a sexually transmitted disease.
That is such a relief to hear.
Right. The human papillomavirus is this enormous family of viruses with over 100 different variations. The specific strains responsible for foot infections, we're primarily talking about types 1, 2, 4, 27, 57. They only have the biological programming to infect the keratinocytes.
And those are?
The outer layers of the skin on your extremities. They physically cannot survive in internal organs.
Okay, got it.
The strains associated with genital warts, like type 6 and 11, those operate on entirely different biological pathways. Sexual contact does not transmit the strains found on the feet.
That distinction alone saves so much unnecessary panic. But even knowing it's a virus, identifying a plantar wart is surprisingly difficult.
It really is.
Because the biomechanics of just walking around completely mask the symptoms.
Right, because you're constantly bearing weight on that tissue.
No.
The growth doesn't form a raised bump like a wart on your hand would.
It gets squished.
Essentially, yes. The pressure forces the viral lesion to grow inward. It hides completely under a hardened layer of keratinized skin.
So it looks almost identical to a standard issue foot corn.
Exactly.
Which brings up the visual detective work Chase outlines in the article. How do you actually distinguish a viral intruder from simple mechanical friction, like a normal callus?
You have to look closely at the architecture of the skin itself. The soles of your feet have these natural continuous striations.
Like fingerprints.
Basically, fingerprints for your feet, yeah. A mechanical callus will maintain those natural lines seamlessly across its surface.
Right.
But a wart is an active biological infection. It physically displaces the skin's structure. So the natural skin lines will abruptly break or detour right around the lesion.
That is a brilliant diagnostic check. If the lines break, you have a virus.
Yep. And there is also a very specific pain response you can test for.
The squeeze test.
Exactly. If you press directly down on a simple corn, it hurts because you are pushing a hard core of dead skin deeper into the foot.
Ouch.
But if you press directly down on a plantar wart, the pain is often surprisingly minimal. The telltale diagnostic is lateral pressure. Squeezing the lesion from side to side triggers a very sharp, distinct pain response.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The visual markers people often refer to as seed warts or fish eye warts. You look closely at the foot and see these tiny black dots in the center of the growth. And the natural assumption is that you are looking at a root or a seed.
But the biology behind those dots is far more sophisticated than just a seed.
It's wild.
When the virus enters the skin, it triggers abnormal rapid cell multiplication. To sustain that kind of rapid structural growth, the virus needs a dedicated nutrient supply.
It's hungry.
Very hungry. So it essentially hijacks your local microcapillaries. Those black pinpoints are actually tiny, clotted blood vessels feeding the viral structure.
It literally builds a blood-fed bunker inside the sole of the foot.
That's a great way to put it.
And what about the term fish eye wart? Where does that come from?
That just describes a specific clinical presentation. It's where you have a central core of those clotted vessels, surrounded by a distinct hardened ring of skin.
So it looks like an eye.
It quite literally resembles a fish's eye staring back from the sole of the foot.
Gross, but fascinating. Let's map out where these typically set up camp. They can appear anywhere on the plantar surface, obviously, but the data shows they have preferred zones.
They definitely have zones of opportunity.
Like digital warts. Those form on or between the toes, right? Heavily aggravated by tight footwear.
Right, the friction helps them settle in.
You also see them on the heel, where constant weight-bearing drives them incredibly deep into the tissue.
And athletes frequently deal with them deep under the skin on the balls of the feet. On the surface, it might barely register visually, but internally it feels like a permanent hard stone lodged right in the tissue.
That sounds miserable. Chase's research also points out how they group together. You have solitary warts,
which are single growths. They expand and sometimes spawn smaller satellites nearby.
and then you have mosaic clusters.
Yes, where multiple warts merge tightly into a large, flat, painful patch. And interestingly, adults actually develop these expansive mosaic clusters more frequently than children do.
So knowing what they look like is step one. Step two is understanding the infiltration. How does this specific HPV strain actually bypass our natural defenses?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is an environmental equation. The virus thrives in warm, damp, communal spaces.
Like locker rooms?
Locker rooms, public showers, the wet tile perimeters around swimming pools.
But it still needs an entry point, though. It can't just melt through healthy skin on contact, can it?
No, it relies on microscopic abrasions. Tiny cracks or cuts on the bottom of the foot that you would never even notice in your day-to-day life.
And damp skin is softer.
It's incredibly porous, making it much easier for the virus to slip through those microtears compared to dry, intact skin.
The statistics from Era Organics really put that transmission rate into perspective. 10 to 20% of children will develop these during their school years.
School environments are perfect incubation zones.
Because they're everywhere.
Kids share gymnasiums and locker rooms constantly. Plus, their immune systems are still developing a baseline memory of these common pathogens.
But susceptibility isn't just limited to childhood.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Adults with compromised immune systems are at risk. People who frequently walk barefoot in high-risk areas, and individuals who have had plantar warts before are all prime targets.
Because the virus can linger in the environment.
Exactly.
Let's look at the consequences of just ignoring them. Say you have a small bump. You do the side-to-side squeeze test. You check the skin lines, and you confirm it's a wart.
Okay.
Why should you care? It's just a bump on your foot.
The complications compound very quickly if left unchecked. The immediate issue is the pain. Because the lesion is growing inward, it presses directly against sensitive dermal nerves.
Every single step hurts.
Right. And the human body is incredibly adaptive. So subconsciously, you alter your gait. You shift your weight to avoid loading that specific painful part of your foot.
Altering your biomechanics like that has to throw everything else out of alignment.
It triggers a massive Kennick chain reaction. A slight subconscious limp leads to secondary muscle strain in the calf.
It pulls on the knee.
Alters the angle of the knee, which strains the hip, ultimately culminating in severe lower back pain. You end up seeking treatment for back issues, completely unaware that the root cause is a viral growth on your heel.
Wow. And if the localized pain gets annoying enough that you start picking at it, you introduce a whole new set of risks. The source material emphasizes the danger of self-inoculation.
When you scratch at the lesion, you are physically transferring active viral particles to your fingertips.
No.
And from there to anywhere else you touch on your own body. Furthermore, scratching creates micro-wounds that invite ambient bacteria into the area.
Now, you aren't just dealing with a localized virus. You are opening the door for severe bacterial infections.
Precisely.
The article explicitly mentions cellulitis and localized abscesses. We should contextualize that for the listener.
Good idea.
Cellulitis is a deep skin infection that can spread rapidly into the bloodstream if left untreated. So what starts as a nuisance virus turns into a critical bacterial crisis requiring serious antibiotics.
Which is exactly why proactive management is so critical.
We absolutely need a battle plan. Era Organics provides a phenomenal breakdown of clinical and home treatments. But there is a statistic here that completely changes the context of the conversation.
The natural resolution rate.
Yes. 65% of plantar warts eventually clear up entirely on their own, with zero medical intervention.
It is amazing. The body's immune system does possess the capability to recognize the viral cells and systematically destroy them.
But the timeline is the real issue.
That's the catch. For children, natural resolution typically takes 1 to 2 years. For adults, it can stretch much, much longer.
Why does it take years for our immune system to handle a virus that has actively hijacked our blood vessels?
It is a masterclass in biological stealth.
So.
Well, HPV doesn't invade the bloodstream or the deep dermal tissue where your immune cells constantly patrol. It sets up shop in the basal layer of the epidermis.
So it hides.
Exactly. Because it avoids the blood supply initially and doesn't destroy the host cells in a way that triggers a massive inflammatory response, it flies completely under the body's immune radar.
Sneaky.
It quietly replicates for months or years before the white blood cells finally recognize the foreign protein structures and mount an attack.
So what does this all mean? If there is a 65% chance it resolves naturally, shouldn't we just wait it out and let the body do its job?
Waiting leaves you highly contagious for that entire duration.
Right, you're a walking hazard.
Every time you use a shared shower at home or walk barefoot across the bathroom floor, you are shedding active viral particles. Not to mention enduring years of the cascading joint and back pain we just discussed.
So intervening is always the recommended path.
Always.
Let's break down the options, starting with the DIY route. The most accessible method is over-the-counter salicylic acid. That usually runs between $10 and $25 at a pharmacy.
Salicylic acid works through slow, persistent chemical exfoliation. It incrementally dissolves the keratin. That's the protein that forms both the thick overlying callus and the structural matrix of the wart itself.
Nikki Chase also validates the legendary duct tape method in the article.
Yes, the famous duct tape.
It sounds like an urban myth, but it is a legitimate, documented strategy. You basically cover the lesion with a strong adhesive tape that deprives the localized tissue of oxygen and moisture.
And when you peel the tape away days later, it physically rips off layers of dead, infected skin.
Whether you use acid or suffocation, physical debridement is key to making them work, isn't it?
It is. The clinical recommendation is to soak the foot first to soften the tissue, then gently use a pumice stone to file away the dead surface layers.
Just filing down.
Removing that top barrier allows the topical treatments to actually reach the active viral cells beneath.
Now, an absolutely critical note for you listening right now. Chase's research explicitly warns that diabetics should never attempt self-treatment for foot growths.
Never. Peripheral neuropathy often prevents diabetics from feeling how much tissue they are actually damaging with acids or pumice stones.
I just can't feel it.
And compromised circulation means minor wounds won't heal properly. A botched home treatment can easily escalate into an amputation risk.
That is terrifying.
Medical supervision is non-negotiable in those cases.
For those who need faster results or have incredibly stubborn growths, clinical treatments offer serious firepower. Cryotherapy is usually the first clinical stop. Doctors use liquid nitrogen to deep freeze the tissue.
And the goal of cryotherapy isn't merely to freeze the wart itself, it's to induce a controlled thermal injury.
Like a burn from the cold.
Right. This extreme cold causes a blister to form in the healthy tissue directly underneath the wart.
Oh, underneath it.
Over the course of a week or two, as that blister heals and the dead skin sloughs off, it physically severs the wart from its biological anchor. It uproots the viral structure entirely.
It sounds intense, and I imagine it requires a few days of recovery. The article also mentions cantharidin as an alternative that uses a similar blistering mechanism.
Cantharidin is a chemical compound derived from blister beetles.
Beetles?
Yep. A doctor paints this compound directly onto the lesion. It provokes a profound blistering reaction beneath the epidermis to detach the infected tissue.
Wow.
Both of these blistering methods often require multiple clinical sessions to fully eradicate a deep-seated infection.
But what happens when the virus refuses to budge even after that?
That is when specialized interventions like laser therapy come into play.
Bringing out the lasers.
A focused beam of intense light is calibrated to seek out and cauterize those tiny clotted blood vessels feeding the wart.
Cut off the nutrient supply.
And the viral tissue starves and dies. Clinicians can also utilize minor surgery, employing an electric needle to excise the tissue under local anesthesia.
The most elegant clinical solution, however, has to be immune therapy.
I agree. Rather than attacking the growth from the outside, immune therapy leverages your own biology. Doctors inject an antigen, often a yeast extract, directly into the wart.
Just a shot of yeast right into the foot.
The body reacts aggressively to the yeast, flooding the area with white blood cells. In the process of attacking the yeast, the immune system finally sees the hidden HPV virus and dismantles it.
You are artificially painting a massive target on the virus, so the body's internal special forces know exactly where to strike.
That's a great analogy.
Now, supporting all of this medical intervention is a robust daily skincare routine. Era Organics outlines a protocol starting with an anti-itch cream formulated to help dissolve the wart's protein structure,
Alongside their dermatitis cream for deeply entrenched lesions.
Right. They also advocate for a USDA-certified organic product called Super Balm Healing Ointment.
It serves a very specific mechanical purpose. By intensely softening the dead keratinized cells on the surface, it dramatically increases the permeability of the skin,
So the meds can get in.
allowing targeted medications to penetrate deeper and act faster.
They also recommend using a hypochlorous acid spray to cleanse the foot. We should explain what that actually is because it sounds like a harsh industrial chemical.
It really does.
But hypochlorous acid is actually a mild substance that mimics the exact compound our own white blood cells produce to fight infection. It neutralizes viral particles on the skin's surface while simultaneously eliminating the damp microenvironment the virus relies on.
When pairing that with a daily application of a moisturizing calendula cream, helps physically sweep away any shed viral particles.
And keeps the skin healthy.
More importantly, it maintains the integrity of the skin barrier, closing those microscopic doorways the virus needs to enter in the first place.
Which transitions perfectly into the ultimate prevention strategy. Era Organics provides a framework of 7 preventative rules, and they all revolve around controlling your environment.
Prevention fundamentally relies on understanding the virus's needs. It requires moisture to survive outside a host and a microabrasion to enter a new one.
Rule 1 is simple avoidance. Do not make direct physical contact with visible warts. If accidental contact happens, thorough hand washing is your immediate countermeasure.
Right.
That completely recontextualizes how we should behave in public spaces. The classic advice of wearing water shoes in communal showers or around public pools isn't just about general hygiene.
It is a necessary structural barrier against a virus that actively thrives on that specific wet tile. A physical barrier is your only reliable defense in those high-risk zones.
You must keep the feet dry.
But prevention also applies to how you treat your own body if an infection does occur. The urge to pick at a painful lesion is entirely natural, but it directly facilitates the self-inoculation we discussed earlier. Don't pick at them.
Which also means your bathroom tools need to be strictly quarantined. You cannot use a pumice stone or a pair of nail clippers on a viral lesion and then use those same tools on healthy skin.
That is a guaranteed method of cross-contamination. Use separate foot tools. You also have to consider the microclimate inside your own footwear. Changing your socks daily or immediately after a heavy workout removes the trapped dampness that allows the virus to remain viable against your skin.
It is all about making your foot an incredibly inhospitable place for a virus to live.
Plantar warts are a ubiquitous, frustrating problem. But understanding their viral architecture, knowing they are a living infection rather than just a mechanical callus, gives you a massive tactical advantage.
It really does.
You can identify them accurately using the diagnostic checks, deploy the right clinical or home treatments, and build a hygiene protocol that prevents reinfection. Foot hygiene is your absolute first line of defense.
It gives you complete control over the situation.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. We mentioned earlier that 65% of these warts eventually just vanish on their own because your immune system finally wakes up to the threat. Think about that for a second. If your body has the latent power to recognize and completely dismantle a highly adapted virus that literally built a hardened, blood-fed bunker inside the sole of your foot, what other invisible microscopic battles is your immune system silently winning for you today without you even noticing?